Good morning, everybody, and thanks again for joining us. So, welcome to the June episode of the Eloqua user group. We're delighted to be walking through Eloqua landing pages with you today. And so, today's session is more about looking at some use cases than it is so much about how to use the landing page editor. We can cover that in another webinar, but today we wanted to give you some ideas and tips on how to really maximize this part of the Eloqua platform. We've had a great session with the Australian and Asia Pac audience this week and got some good feedback. So fingers crossed, and hopefully you will enjoy this session. Just some housekeeping for you. We use Zoom to record our sessions, which we're on right now, and replays will be available via our blog at marketingcube.com.au/blog. And you'll find plenty of content there, so please feel free to drop by. We use the Q&A function throughout the session. Please keep in mind that the Q&A is visible to everybody. So if you do have any private questions that you prefer to present, please use the chat function in order to do that. Now, this month, as promised, is a little bit different. We have a special guest with us, and Rebecca Sanchez is the Global Marketing Journey Manager at Les Mills in the US. And hi, Ro, and you're based in Detroit, is that right?
That's right.
Excellent. And I understand you've just had a sun-drenched week-long holiday, so you're refreshed and ready to join us today.
Yeah, I'm excited and ready to go.
Great. Thank you so much. My name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today, and we're also joined by Adrian Jones, our CEO. So thanks again, Adrian, for making some time to be with us.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so what's on our agenda today? So a little bit of a welcome, as is always the case. And then what we're going to do is look at landing pages in relation to which delivers the best CX. Is it your CMS or is it the Eloqua landing page? And is it necessarily one or the other? We'll talk a little bit about that. We're then going to look at some use cases, a variety of use cases, and also the importance of forms, a really critical part of the landing page construct, certainly from a lead capture point of view. Contact us, etc., and all those sorts of things, but certainly from a lead capture point of view. If we have time, we will then get into some of the detail around Release 24B, which occurred this month as well. All right, so which delivers the best CX? And is it really a binary exercise? Is it really one or the other? Okay, so we know that when you build landing pages in Eloqua that you have two choices to play with. You've got the source editor, which is strictly an HTML environment. Okay, so if you're an HTML coder, front-end developer, that's probably going to be your preference. That's the sweet spot for you. For the rest of us who don't know HTML, and as I like to tell clients, I can't even spell HTML, we use the design editor, and that's a drag and drop function. But you should also know that the design editor does give you the ability to add some HTML, should you need it for a range of different things. So CSS can be applied. So just as you've got CSS on your website, we can take that same construct and then apply it to your Eloqua landing pages. So that means that your Eloqua landing pages are the same font, etc., same sort of colors, all those sorts of things can be applied using CSS. And JavaScript is that little bit of magic that enables you to, I call it magic because I can't do it, right? So if you're a front-end developer, it's just JavaScript. But JavaScript is cool and really helps to enhance the CX that you can provide using that. But really, in a nutshell, and this is, I think I've spent, well, I think I'm in my 11th year now, Adrian, with Marketing Cube. And for 11 years, I've tried to drive home this point to clients that there's no reason your Eloqua landing pages cannot look the same as your website. So from a branding and consistency point of view, there's nothing stopping that from happening. So if you look at your Eloqua landing pages and everything's in Helvetica and your website is in Garamond or Railway or something else, and you're like, that really annoys you, it doesn't have to be that way. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I wanted to give you an example from one of our clients here in the Asia Pacific region, which is the University of Auckland in New Zealand. And this is just, I just want to show a visual. And so what you see here, this is probably a little bit like some of the clients in Canada, in the French side or portion of Canada, where things are displayed in multiple languages, in So here, what we're looking at is both in Maori and in English. Okay, and so it gets busy, but that's okay. That's the whole website is kind of that way, but it gets kind of busy. And when you navigate around, there's lots of content, but that's what you expect when you visit the web page. I want to show you an example then of what they produced in the engineering school. And in the engineering school, they developed, and I'll show you this in a little bit more detail shortly, but this is actually now an Eloqua landing page. But some of the fundamentals are different, right? The first thing you're going to notice is that top line menu has been completely removed from this experience. The footer detail is trimmed down as well. And if you go to their website, you'll see the footer has a lot more information on the CMS. But on the Eloqua side, they've kind of shrunk it down. They just want to remove the distractions because the whole purpose of this page is for people to click on start the quiz. And we'll have a look at the quiz a little bit later as well. Essentially, when you're looking at lead capture, you want to remove as many distractions as you can. So when we ask the question, should my Eloqua landing pages look identical to my website or my CMS? Generally the answer is actually no. From a styling point of view and a branding point of view, absolutely, yes, it should be. But let's explore further. We'll have a look at a few more points. So this was a question asked by somebody submitted within the Asia Pacific area or the episode earlier this week. They said, what are the things that we should consider if we're having the discussion and we're trying to work out, should we produce Eloqua landing pages or should we use the CMS or website? And these are kind of the key differentiators as to why you would use an Eloqua landing page. And Roy, feel free to jump in here because you may have other reasons as well that I've not even listed here. But the big things are dynamic content, which you can deliver on your Eloqua landing pages for both copy and images. Okay. So if you really know and understand the people you're talking to, and think of it in a B2B context with maybe identifying industry, for example, being able to slightly adjust imagery or even the language that you're using if you know the industry that the person is from. Field merge personalization. So just as we can say, good morning, Derek, in an email, we can do the same thing on an Eloqua landing page by saying, welcome, Derek, or Derek, it's great to see you again. You can use that same level of personalization on your landing pages. The other really nice thing from a lead capture point of view is the pre-filling of forms. So the ability to be able to have people arrive at a landing page and have a form partially filled in is certainly going to help you from a lead capture point of view and to reduce form abandonment. So certainly something to think about. Now, the other one is live in minutes. Now, I say minutes because technically, yes, it can be live in minutes, but you still need to do some design and thinking and all that kind of fun stuff as well. So that one's it's not a stretch, but let's say live in half an hour maybe by the time you access your template and throw the bits and pieces together. And I challenge you to see if you can get your web developers and the CMS side of the team to work that quickly to get something up and running. So yeah, super fast in order to make that happen. So they would be some considerations, things for you to think about. So now you've thought about it and you've weighed up your options. Okay, what about the campaign objective? And this can be another set of questions to help you determine which is the better choice. Is it my CMS or is it the Eloqua landing page? So in the context of lead capture, I would suggest that one's kind of a no-brainer decision. It really, Eloqua really is going to give you the better experience. You progressive profiling on forms, all those sorts of things. Event registration, that one's probably a sweet spot. I imagine most of you on the call today probably are already using Eloqua to do event registration, whether it's in person or webinars like we do for the Eloqua user group each month. That's all driven completely using our Eloqua landing pages and forms. Accessing thought leadership is another really good one, which is kind of lead capture, may not be all the time, but being able to ask questions using progressive profiling and just grabbing that extra piece of first party data that you might be missing on particular individuals. Delivering of a survey. Now, Eloqua at its core is not a survey tool. It's not a survey monkey. And if you're a survey monkey fan, and look, survey monkey is a great tool, but Eloqua is not that. If you're delivering surveys, there are a range of ways that you can do it and different applications. So if you wanted to talk about that one in a bit more detail, we could absolutely do it. Hey, Ro, maybe a question without notice to you. Has Les Mills ever used Eloqua to deliver surveys to people?
No, that's not something that we've ever done through an Eloqua landing page before. Definitely good food for thought for the
Yeah, right.
future.
Yeah. Yeah. But I suppose that the caveat I would always say to clients is how complex is the survey that you're doing? If there's lots of logic as the response is number two for question one, and that means we skip the next question, move on to the third. If there's all that kind of logic, it can be done. Don't get me wrong. It can absolutely be done. But it would depend. NPS is a great example, though. So we have a number of clients using Eloqua to deliver NPS surveys. Very simple, nice and easy, and the ability to store that data within Eloqua and actually use it to potentially future personalization and segmentation for a range of different things. Advertising. So I think back to one of our large financial service clients, and this goes back a long time. It actually predates me at Marketing Cube, where they were running loads of banner ads, and it was just so much faster for them to be able to build very specific targeted landing pages in Eloqua than it was to get their head office, which was overseas, in order to build things. That took weeks for them to do with approvals and time and all that kind of stuff. They could respond much faster using Eloqua because of the speed of being able to get those landing pages up and running and so quickly. So advertising, gamification can be another one. Again, remember, it's just HTML. There is no limitation. So if you've got a front-end developer, and if you don't, we can help you. That's what we do as well. So we do a lot of coding for clients for a range of different things. But gamification maybe is another really good example for a hyper-personalized type experience. Okay, so I wanted to give you some use cases and walk you through some concepts and then actually show you some examples as well. So this is probably the most common one where we present a form on a landing page, people submit it, we give them a confirmation page, and then we send them a confirmation email. Nice and easy. You guys can probably do that in your sleep. Another one, and this is something that some clients just kind of haven't even thought about, is the notion of a microsite. So all you're doing when you develop a microsite using Eloqua is it's just multiple landing pages that you're putting together, and you can very easily create a navigation, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that here in a moment. But think of like an annual sales conference or an annual event that you might be doing, where you really want to provide some really tailored information for people. Again, utilizing dynamic content, personalization, all those sorts of things can really deliver a really nice experience for people. All right, so here we go. I'm going to click away and show you. Now, one of these you've seen pretty much each month when you register. When you register for the Eloqua user group, we take you to a confirmation page. And that confirmation page is part of this microsite. It's actually a separate page, but it looks the same. And so from a microsite point of view, what I've done is simply use the button construct. That's all these are. They're just buttons, but instead of when I click on them, opening the page in a new browser, it opens that page, the new page in the same browser tab. So then it behaves more like a website slash microsite than it does constantly opening, different tabs, etc. And so in here, we've got a whole range of different things for people. They can connect with us on social, connecting with Oracle as well, if they need help with different things. And this section here is actually dynamic content. So what you're looking at here on screen right now is what those people, or what we would call prospects. So those people who are not clients of Marketing Cube today. We obviously love everybody joining us at the user group, so thanks for coming along. But yeah, so what our customers would see here is pretty much a single button, enabling them to directly contact our service team. So they can submit a ticket or a question or a case, exercise directly with them. So just a slightly different experience. Under Learn More, This one's actually the same for everybody. So we can off to our library to access replays, and then the home screen. And so, yeah, so when you register each month, you'll come to a confirmation page and it looks like this. So the styling of the microsite is all pretty much the same. All right, let's have a look at a different one. This is for the North Americans and Europeans on the call. Certainly, any of the Europeans, you'll be very familiar with your GDPR legislation. We're certainly very familiar with it, and I'm sure, Ro, you're probably also very familiar with it. In Australia, we're about to go through a process of something very similar, which the federal government is rolling out. And so this is actually this is still under construction, but I wanted to show it to you because essentially it's the same thing. That's that's why we have pictures of the Greek Isles here, because I'm thinking I want to put something in there to kind of catch people's attention, but I just wanted a visual to see what it would look like. So again, this is all done in the design editor, so there's not a lick of HTML on here anywhere. There's some CSS but that's all built into my templates. So that was built in for me, a number of years ago, and it just I don't need to do anything as a user. It just appears. And so everything is on brand for us with our font and all those sorts of fun things and buttons and so on and so forth. So again, and the whole purpose of this microsite is to provide information to marketers in relation to what's coming up and what this privacy legislation is going to look like. We don't know what it exactly is at the moment because the government hasn't released it. So at the moment, it's everybody throwing in their opinions. So we'll plan that out and have a library section. Here we look at other jurisdictions around the world. There's GDPR, also the California Consumer Privacy Act as well, and just giving some of our local folks here in Australia an idea of what other markets are doing. We've also got a link. We've created a LinkedIn group as well, and so from this button, that will then take you off to LinkedIn, where obviously you would need to log in. Now, they've got a couple of forms that we've done here. We've put in sort of like a mini preference center, essentially, for people. So if they wanted to unsubscribe just from this subscription versus opting out completely, or maybe a colleague shares a link with somebody, so a colleague can come here and then actually subscribe. And so we've given them some options there as to what they'd like to do. And then also a contact us. So what we've done is just created a sort of a shortened version of our standard contact form. But you can see how we can sort of wrap all of that in to a single microsite environment. Okay. And yeah, let's have a close look now at the University of Auckland. I want to show you what they've done here, and this is quite interesting. So this is actually their second version. They were so wrapped with the first one and the results they got. They did some refining after looking at that, and then they went on to create version 2. So what you've got to imagine is you're either a senior at high school, or you could even be potential international student looking to study within New Zealand. And so you click on Start the Quiz, and off we go. So have you studied engineering before? I'm going to say no, because I haven't. Okay. What do you value most in your career? All right. So how about working on projects that I'm passionate about? Now, before I go on, what I want to point out to you is this is still an Eloqua form. Okay. It's not your traditional fields with typing in responses, but it's still a form. Okay. And so what's happening in the back end is each of those responses are being dropped into the form just as you would look at a form submission data report from an event, for example. Okay. All right. So I'm passionate about that. All right. Which of these are you most interested in? Let's do environment and sustainability. Okay. Now, notice it's at this point, I'm not sure if you noticed, but there was no question at the front of the survey about who I was. It was just kind of straight into the quiz. Okay. So even if I get to this point and I choose for whatever reason to not fill this in, that data that I've submitted has actually been captured. Okay. And that's just simply a way the page can be developed in order to make that happen. But of course, it's much better if I actually respond. And thank you to the good team at the University of Auckland for letting me putting in some dummy data. Because this is a live form. And so what they're going to do is then send me some information in relation to what I've done, and they've sort of given you some an idea here as to different things to explore. And so this page is dynamic based on the responses that I provided in that particular survey. It's pretty short, it's nice and simple, but there's more information here for me to access. And so that's all delivered using Eloqua Landing Pages, dynamic content, bit of field merging, all that kind of fun stuff to build in. So there's three examples for you to have a little think about and ways to do things. Okay. So forms and landing pages. So forms play a pretty critical role. And as I've said here, it's a match made in digital heaven. Okay, so let's take a step back and just have a look at our technology landscape for a second. So this is probably, for most people on the call, this is not an unusual environment for you to be working in. You obviously have Eloqua because you're with us today. I'm sure most of you would have a CRM, and it's highly likely that that CRM is integrated to Eloqua. And today they hopefully talk nicely to each other backwards and forwards. Then you've got your CMS, and whether you have form functionality built into the CMS, or maybe you're using third-party form apps. So in a WordPress environment, for example, there will be an app that you would add to your WordPress environment that would be forms. And so let's just look at that. We've got Eloqua storing data for you. Now, depending on where you are in the world, that data is either in Canada, it's either in the United States, or here in Australia, for instance. Then you've got your CRM data. So again, where's that data being stored? It could be in the United States, it could be overseas in Canada, etc. The CMS, well, again, that's going to vary as to where you may have that local data center around the corner. That's nice and easy. But what about that third-party form app? I wonder where that's hosted. Yes, you've added it to WordPress. That's great, but I wonder where it's actually going to be stored. Essentially, more systems equals more risk. And an environment, certainly in the Australian market, and I'm sure it's the same in the US, customers are getting very wary about their data and where their data is stored, and people's access and the bad actors that we have out there that are doing some nasty things. Smart Eloqua forms can really make a difference. And so what we do is we really encourage our clients to make sure they use their Eloqua forms in place of third-party forms. So some clients will do things on the CMS and they might want to throw in another form. And so then what happens to that data? Does that data then sit in the CMS? Does it go from the form app into the CMS and then maybe eventually over to Eloqua? Is it sent via an email and it's manually entered? Hopefully not. Hopefully there's some integration in place. But your forms and your Eloqua forms on Eloqua landing pages, and that's the caveat, Eloqua forms on your Eloqua landing pages can pre-populate, and that's a really key function. Progressive profiling is another great function to help you get more information instead of asking the same questions every single time. Feel free to scan that QR code, by the way. That will take you off to a page on our website where we talk a little bit more about one of the services we provide around helping you do a little bit of audit with your forms and looking at opportunities to streamline those forms. So they can really help you deliver a far more elegant experience from an event registration point of view. Great for post-event surveys. We talked earlier about NPS and CSAT type of surveys. Contact us. Case management is interesting, right? So if depending on the integration you've got, you can use your form processing steps to push information into the CRM. It doesn't always have to be straight to a lead. It could be to a case management area within the CRM platform. So there's a range of ways that you can play around with that information and use the existing integration that you've got in place versus having to use more third-party apps to deliver that experience. Looking at the data again, so we have Oracle and you've got Eloqua, you've got all your information, all your data stored there. You've got your CMS potentially, and these third-party form apps that we talked about. And then the CMS may go in multiple directions. The CMS may send data to your CRM or it may send it to Eloqua. If it comes into Eloqua, then you're probably using your integration to get that information backwards and forwards between the CRM and Eloqua. And the CRM and Eloqua link is usually bidirectional. You're often going in both ways. But if we can sort of trim things down a little bit and sort of clean up that technology environment, the first one to really try and get rid of is probably any third-party form apps that you might have. It's just unnecessary. And I want to show you an example here of two ways that you can present your Eloqua forms on both the CMS, but also obviously on Eloqua landing pages. So embedded forms is one way you can do it on the CMS, or just simply including a link in the navigation of your website. So and that's why I've kind of grayed that one out, the CMS, because in those examples of embedded forms and also using them in your form navigation, the data really goes from the form directly into Eloqua. It's not really going through the CMS. It's just kind of sitting on top of the CMS, so to speak, but it's not actually going into the CMS. It's going directly into Eloqua, hence the pretty arrows. Okay, let me show you what I mean. So here we have an example. So Marketing Cube. And I got to tell you, the main reason I've done it this way is because me trying to get our developers to do stuff for me takes too long because they're too busy helping our clients. So all I've done is this is WordPress that we use for our website. And as you're probably familiar, all of these pages, these are all WordPress pages, etc. However, when you click on Contact Us, we take you away from WordPress and you're now directly at an Eloqua landing page. So here, standard Eloqua form in the Contact Us environment, something you're very familiar with. Another one I wanted to show you, though, is from one of our clients here, and this is actually our Atlas client that we showed or mentioned earlier. So Atlas is a technology company based in Singapore. This is their website. This is their CMS, which happens to be WordPress as well. And if I click on contact for them, I remain on the website. However, this form right here is actually embedded. So an iframe, essentially, sitting within their website. So what they wanted to do was, again, they wanted to avoid having data flowing into forms and then having to send it from there into Eloqua. The nice thing here is it goes straight to Eloqua. We can immediately send confirmation emails. The data is nice and tidy. Take advantage of your form processing steps, sending that information directly into their CRM platform. Okay, directly from there. So a much nicer, quicker, more elegant way to do things. But I know why everybody's here, and it's really, Ro, to hear from you. So Les Mills is a New Zealand company originally, but definitely a global player. And we've got a little bit of information here, which I pinched off their website. But Ro, maybe you could just give us a quick elevator pitch in relation to Les Mills.
Sure. So Les Mills is a New Zealand-based company. It's actually a family-owned Les Mills company. We've been around for over 55 years in the industry, mostly focused around group training and delivering world-class group training, fitness experiences. Our workouts range across various different types of workouts across whether it's martial arts, body pump, which is our most popular and famous workout, around strength training and endurance, and now really getting ourselves into how we can really target the younger demographics with our limited edition programming. We deliver world-class training to instructors. We're really kind of here to support clubs in every area of their business, and group training is just one of those offerings that we offer. I mean, I could talk about what we do all day long, as I've been with the business for a really long time and really believe in what we do and just trying to create a fitter planet
Yeah.
is, I guess, what rounds it up.
So for everybody on the call, they may have a glance and kind of look at Les Mills as kind of a gymnasium and programs, etc., and have a feel maybe it's B2C, but it's not really, is it? I mean, you guys are more B2B because it's the gym owners that you're spending a lot of time talking to and the instructors that you talk to. Is that a fair statement?
Yes and no.
Oh,
We actually have an app called Lesmos Plus. So that's really where the big channel in which we target consumers and directly targeting exercisers and just people that are interested in working out. And it is one of the offerings that we offer to our clubs that they can offer to their members as well, so that they can have that well-rounded approach. I mean, for us, it really goes back to that mission of creating a fitter planet and how can we get as many people to have access to workouts that are great, that are tested, that they can see results, have fun with.
yeah.
So we're everywhere.
Everywhere. So B2B and B2C.
Exactly. Mhm.
So let me just, I've got some questions here that we kind of talked about, because one of the key things that I wanted to try and understand and to sort of share with everybody. All right, so here's the question. So we talked about, what are the benefits um, from your from your position of hosting landing pages in Eloqua rather than hosting them elsewhere? So what is it? What is it that you in your business when it's time to do a campaign and you go through that process of like we talked about earlier, is it going to be the CMS or is it going to be Eloqua? What sort of thought process do you go through or decision process?
For sure. We've been going through this a lot recently, and really leaning on Eloqua landing pages a lot more in the last year or so with the help of, Adrian and his team. But the main reason that we really use Eloqua landing pages and what tipped us over to starting to use them just so much more frequently is the tracking abilities that we have. We are currently experiencing a bit of a disconnect with our CMS and our tracking across email. And so one way to like instantly mitigate that was let's keep it within the same system at any point in which we want conversion touch points. Which takes me into a lot of the things that you were talking about. I was kind of just checking the boxes of everything that you were saying. But oftentimes when we do use these landing pages, it's because we are looking for a conversion touch point. So what does that experience with forms look like? And we have started to make the complete switch to using only Eloqua progressive dynamic forms and like pre-populated forms. And so that kind of in itself is like, okay, well, another thing that we can do on an Eloqua landing page and not have to have a separate experience. Um, it enables us to have dynamic content, which we're trying to do a lot more personalization and segmentation as we look at things like lead scoring that we're already doing in Eloqua and things like that. So it just kind of makes it easier to have a single touch point where we can manage the experience for our audience in one place. So it really is just kind of like checking all the boxes of what we're trying to do and making it as easy as possible for the team to be able to execute on it.
Got it. Okay, that's fascinating. So then from a, and I suppose you kind of touched on it here, but that whole personalization level, and delivering a more streamlined approach, it seems like the Eloquent landing pages have really kind of helped you achieve that. Um, was there nervousness in relation to, oh, is our data okay? Is the data going to deliver the right thing? Is it, because a lot of that data is coming from the CRM. Would that be fair?
Yes. And I think that's where it's such a good point, and it is a catch 22 and something we're constantly talking about with Thomas, who's our marketing cube point of contact.
Mhm.
Is, well, what can we do? And we've honestly started very simple in trying to do some background work and trying to fix our data in the meantime. So I
Yeah.
can't say that we've necessarily gone like really crazy with the types of segmentation that we're doing. We're really talking like, okay, so for prospects in this specific category that they sit in, let's show this type of content block, not necessarily be getting as specific as like, if it's their favorite color, do this, or we're really keeping it pretty high level while we aggregate some data, while we clean things up in the background, and not necessarily being like, Oh, well, we have to wait for every piece to be in place in order for us to start doing this. Which I
That,
think is an important call out, right? Like sometimes it does feel like so overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. But there are ways that you can kind of scale back and take small bites and like dip your toe in the water per se.
so that's really cool because I mean I certainly have had those conversations with clients where sometimes you will, well, our data's not perfect, and until the data's perfect, we really don't want to do it. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm not sure the data's ever going to be perfect.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's a refined process. It's ongoing, right? It's a journey.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um,
Hmm.
so in relation to the measurement, because you said one of the key things was being able to have your landing pages in one place because your measurement, etc., and those sorts of things were better. So is that something where you leveraged, like, is it Insight that you're using to sort of bring some of that sort of dashboard capability using the Insight portion of Eloqua, or how else are you measuring those performance of those assets?
Yes, we are definitely leveraging the insight section of Eloqua. It's another thing that we've really been pushing
Good.
Marketing Cube to support us with. I think really in the last year, we've probably just really ramped up and like taken the bull by the horns, I guess, in terms of Eloquent, like really getting in there. But Marketing Cube has supported us with building out some like pretty amazing dashboards that we use with different tabs where we can look at landing pages specifically, how our forms are performing. I think you touched on this a little bit, but we've been trying to standardize our forms in the background. So like how things are set up in Eloqua, how the data is flowing into Salesforce, because that's our CRM that we use, so that we can have better data flows. And so I feel like all of that like background work on top of leveraging landing pages and things like progressive forms has been just all around game changing for our data
Yeah.
and like the insights that you guys can then pull together for us.
Cool. Let's have a look at a couple of those forms. And yours are quite interesting, right? So this is lesmills.com, so homepage. Lots of cool stuff and loads of things for me to explore and click on.
Come
But
get a sweat with us. Check it out.
then go and work out with the team at Les Mills. So now we're looking though at an Eloqua landing page. And for the folks on the call, I suppose the other key thing to point out here is these pages have been built completely in the design editor using some templates that I believe Thomas had worked and kind of built for you. And
Mhm.
not the source editor, not the HTML, but in fact the design editor. And he showed me this the other day, and he's like, "Wow, they've really added on to this. They've really added a bit."
Yeah.
So he was quite chuffed. He was pretty excited about that. But and so this one, I think, if I keep scrolling, this one was, so we got video in there, and here we have the form at the bottom. And so I understand, depending on when the person comes back to this page, if they've previously submitted it, then they're going to see progressive profiling sort of kicking in, where they'll see slightly different questions, etc., that they go through. Is that right?
Yeah, I think currently we have 3 layers. So, in an effort to shorten the fields that people were seeing up front and increase our overall form fills, which we have seen a slight increase. Again, we are having a bit of a tracking issue right now. Improvements in the actual conversion of our forms, which is great since we launched it. And then we've added in 2 separate layers. So we actually have 3 new questions that we're asking while we're keeping the experience shorter
Sure.
and hopefully easier.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. So then, and I suppose the other thing I wanted to point out to people too is if we sort of compare the pair, looking here at like the standard CMS where we've got the top line, we have login functionality, geographical, et cetera, and top line menus. Whereas once we get to the landing page, by design, we're stripping back some of that information, because what you really want people to focus on is what's on this page. And there's obviously quite a few calls to action to click away and get to things. But yeah, that form, I suppose, is the goal. Then another one,
This is like a content hub, I should say, just to call
right,
out like why there's like a lot on it. This is more of like a place where it's a hub of resources, which is why we want to start actually using landing page more for
right,
that we can drive people to certain sections based on where they are on a journey with us versus like a purely conversion landing page like the one that you're about to see, which is our just contact us.
right.
Just to differentiate why this is crazy long and there's a lot on there.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense because yeah, you want to guide the journey, I suppose, for people a little bit and setting them sometimes to our main website, where you're trying to be everything to everybody, because that's what a website is. It's like a big department store. What you want to do is have them come in a side entrance at the department store and just walk them down certain aisles so they can see some very specific and tailored things for them. All right, and so this one again, so this page is also built using the design editor, so the drag and drop interface again from some templates that have been created for you. Um, and this one again, I believe, also does similar things. So depending on the if there's the second visit back here or etc., there's slightly different things that are presented.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And so standard ability, there's some intelligence in here too, right? I think if I select the United States, then I see obviously the states. If I select Canada, okay, we're not collecting it there. But yeah, so things can sort of change around a little bit. Um, Standard questions and off they go. And then they're in and choose happy. All right. Well, look, we're almost at the end of the time today, but I just wanted to make see if we have any questions from people. And I'm not seeing any Q&A, but please feel free if you do have any questions of Ro and any of the content that or the type of work that they're doing at Les Mills with their forms and landing pages, etc. Please feel free to drop a question in. But Ro, so what do you think over the last 12 months? Here's a question without notice. Over the last 12 months, you've obviously made significant changes in the way you're accessing and using Eloqua landing pages. What do you think has been the single biggest win that you've had as a team, as a marketing team in that process?
Um, Probably just be getting in the system. I think previous to that, we really relied on Marketing Cube to do everything for us in the system. And I think now we've actually become more of like partners in how we run the system instead of just reliant and dependent. We've created global SOPs. We have a handbook with the right ways, with naming conventions. Like there's just been a lot of foundational work.
Mhm.
And as a global company, it's just really important for us to be able to enable and empower our market teams to also be using Eloqua, um, and creating their own landing pages and sending their own marketing automation nurture campaigns or, and so I think because we're a global team that supports local marketing teams, that has been like the biggest win of them all.
That's great.
Um, Definitely couldn't have done it without all of your guys' support.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool. Look, we find in
yeah.
those scenarios too, it's really quite interesting when a client gets to the level that you just, articulated. We then find that then the discussions with us sort of then elevate, they go up. So instead of talking to Marketing Cube about, oh, how do I get this form to do this? We then start to take a step back and we can have more strategic discussions about what you're doing. So yeah, we love it. It's exciting. Adrian, I mean, did you have any comments? Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, well, the only thing that we haven't sort of touched on, I suppose, is the ability to then test and improve and optimize over time. And so one of the things that we often find is that you might have kind of a hypothesis that a form might work better one way, or you might change a submit or move it, or and it may or might not work. But over time, as you make these changes, you can get a 1% or a 2% improvement. By selecting the best of kind of an A/B option. And you do that, you look back and you might be 3 or 4% up by the time you've made a few changes, and that can make a huge difference to your conversion rates and to the experience as well that your customers get. So, um, yeah, I think that's, it's an option there just to continuously improve it. I think that really helps. I think, Ro, you've started to introduce that personalization, as you say, and you might not do it to all the audience, but you can do it to some of the audience, and hopefully you start to see that make a difference.
Mm. Excellent.
Totally.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate Ro, you making some time to be with us, and it's valuable for everybody in the call. And thank you so much for being with us. We're not going to have time to go through Release 24B. I think that was far more interesting talking to you than going through those slides. But just an FYI for everybody in relation to next month. So next month, the user group would have fallen on the 4th of July. And while I'm sure this is gripping, no one's going to want to spend time at the Eloqua user group webinar on the 4th of July in the United States. So we're going to skip and we'll go forward another week. So we'll see you on the 11th of July. So we'll get some invitations out to you for that.
There's just one quick question there, Derek, if you wanted to jump on that. But
thank you. I'm a new user of Eloqua, so am I correct in asking that the design editor can create the landing pages in drag and drop? Correct, absolutely, yes. So the design editor is the drag and drop functionality, and the source editor, I always remember, think about it, source code. So source code, the source editor is the HTML. That's where you get the flashing prompt and the black screen, and you have to do the coding. So yeah, absolutely. So thank you for your question. But otherwise, everybody, thank you so much for making some time. Ro, sorry you have to go back to work after a week enjoying the beach and a holiday, but thank you very much for making some time to be with us today. And thank you very much, Adrian.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys.
Definitely. Thanks, Ro. Thanks, Ro.
Bye-bye.